Local sales taxes rarely feel like headline news, yet for seniors they often become the most punishing kind of tax increase because they show up quietly, every day, on receipts for necessities. When federal Medicaid funding is reduced or capped, states and counties are forced to fill the gap quickly. In many places, that gap is being filled with local sales tax increases. For retirees living on fixed incomes, these changes don't feel theoretical or temporary. They feel immediate, personal, and relentless, because sales taxes hit food, household items, medications, and services that seniors cannot avoid. Medicaid is not an abstract program for retirees. Even seniors who are not enrolled depend on it indirectly. Medicaid supports hospitals, clinics, nursing homes, home health agencies, and long-term care facilities that serve older adults. When federal funding is cut, the costs do not disappear. Hospitals still need staff. Clinics still need supplies. Long-term care facilities still need to operate. The funding shortfall must be covered, and state governments often push that responsibility down to counties and cities. Local leaders then face a choice between cutting services or raising revenue. Sales taxes become the fastest lever to pull. For seniors, the problem with sales taxes is not the headline rate. It is the cumulative effect. A 0.25% increase sounds small. Even a 0.5% increase doesn't seem devastating on paper. But retirees do not have income growth to offset those increases. Every extra cent paid at the register comes directly out of a fixed monthly budget. Over time, those cents add up to hundreds or thousands of dollars a year, quietly draining savings that were meant to last a lifetime. Federal Medicaid cuts often arrive with political language that minimizes their impact. Officials talk about efficiency, flexibility, or shifting responsibility closer to the local level. What that means in practice is that counties are told to solve the problem themselves. Healthcare costs do not shrink when funding is cut. They rise, especially for older populations. Counties with aging residents face the largest gaps. These are the same counties where seniors are already paying more for housing, utilities, and insurance. Local governments usually justify sales tax increases by tying them to healthcare preservation. Voters are told the tax will keep emergency rooms open, protect rural hospitals, or maintain services for vulnerable populations. Seniors hear these messages and feel torn. Many want hospitals to remain open. Many rely on nearby clinics. But they also know that every increase makes their own financial situation more fragile. The emotional pressure is intense because the choice is framed as helping the community or protecting personal survival. Once a sales tax increase is in place, it rarely disappears. Even when federal funding improves later, local taxes tend to remain. Governments grow accustomed to the revenue. Budgets are built around it. Programs expand to match the new income. Seniors are left paying higher prices indefinitely, long after the original justification fades from memory. This is one of the reasons sales taxes are so dangerous for retirees. They are sticky. They lock in higher costs permanently. Seniors also face a harsher reality because sales taxes apply to consumption, not income. Retirees spend a higher share of their income on taxable goods than younger workers do. They are not buying luxury items. They are buying groceries, hygiene products, household supplies, and medical necessities. When sales taxes rise, seniors feel the impact on nearly every shopping trip. There is no way to avoid it without cutting back on essentials. The link between Medicaid cuts and sales taxes becomes clearer when hospitals begin struggling. When federal support declines, hospitals face higher uncompensated care costs. Counties step in to prevent closures, often by raising local taxes. Seniors living near those hospitals may support the goal, but they still pay the price every time they shop. The tax burden shifts from the federal level to the checkout counter. Another issue is how quickly these local tax measures move. Federal policy changes can take effect within a budget cycle. Counties then rush to place tax measures on ballots or enact emergency ordinances. Seniors often do not have time to adjust. Their budgets are already planned. Their savings strategies are already set. When a new sales tax appears, it disrupts everything without warning. Sales taxes also interact with inflation in a way that compounds harm. When prices rise, the tax collected rises automatically because it is a percentage of the price. Seniors pay more not only because the tax rate increased, but because the base price increased as well. A higher grocery bill plus a higher tax rate creates a double hit. This compounding effect is brutal for retirees whose income adjustments lag behind real-world costs. Many seniors notice this first in food costs. Groceries are one of the largest expenses for retirees, and they are taxed in many local jurisdictions. When sales taxes rise, seniors cannot simply stop eating. They may downgrade brands, reduce portions, or skip items, but the tax remains. Over time, nutritional quality suffers. Health declines. Medical costs rise. The cycle feeds itself. Healthcare expenses are also affected indirectly. While many medical services are exempt from sales tax, the supplies and services that support healthcare are not always exempt. Transportation, home supplies, mobility aids, and caregiver services can become more expensive. Seniors who rely on these services feel squeezed from all sides, paying more while receiving no additional income. Another overlooked consequence of sales tax increases is how they affect caregivers and family members. When the cost of care rises, families may provide less support or pass costs onto seniors. Adult children facing their own financial pressures may not be able to help as much. Seniors end up absorbing more of the burden alone. Local sales taxes are especially damaging in rural areas. Rural counties often have higher shares of seniors and fewer alternative revenue sources. When Medicaid cuts hit, these counties rely heavily on sales taxes because property values may be lower and income tax bases smaller. Seniors in these areas already face higher transportation and healthcare access costs. Sales tax increases add to an already fragile situation. For retirees who rent, sales taxes hurt just as much as they do homeowners. Rent itself may not be taxed, but everything else is. Utilities, supplies, transportation, and services all cost more. Renters also face landlords who raise rents to cover higher operating costs tied to healthcare and local taxes. Seniors renting on fixed incomes feel trapped, unable to move easily and unable to absorb rising expenses. One of the most troubling aspects of these tax increases is how they are framed politically. Sales taxes are often described as broad-based and fair because everyone pays them. For seniors, that fairness is illusory. Paying the same rate does not mean bearing the same burden. A working household with rising wages absorbs increases more easily than a retiree living on a fixed check. Equality of rate does not equal equality of impact. Seniors also notice that sales tax increases often come bundled with multiple measures. A healthcare tax is paired with a transportation tax. A public safety levy follows soon after. Each is justified separately. Together, they reshape the cost of living. Retirees experience the result as constant financial erosion rather than a single policy decision. There is also a timing issue. Medicaid cuts often occur during economic uncertainty. Local tax increases then land when seniors are already stressed by inflation, insurance hikes, and utility rate increases. The overlap magnifies fear. Retirees worry not only about today's bills, but about what comes next. The sense of stability retirement promised begins to crumble. Many seniors feel they have little voice in these decisions. Local elections move quickly. Ballot language is complex. tax measures are presented as necessary and urgent. Seniors may support the cause without fully understanding the personal cost. Others may oppose the measure but feel outnumbered. Either way, once the tax passes, the consequences are unavoidable. Over time, these sales tax increases can push seniors toward difficult choices. Some cut back on medical visits. Others reduce heating or cooling to save money. Some consider moving away from communities they have lived in for decades. The emotional toll is heavy. Leaving means losing doctors, neighbors, routines, and memories. Staying means enduring constant financial pressure. Federal Medicaid cuts are often debated in distant capitals, but their effects are felt locally and personally. For seniors, the chain reaction ends at the checkout counter. What begins as a budget adjustment becomes a daily reminder that retirement security is fragile. Each receipt tells the same story: costs are rising, and relief is not keeping pace. Another concern is how these local taxes interact with state policies. States may reduce their own contributions when federal funding declines, pushing even more responsibility onto counties. Seniors end up paying at multiple levels without seeing clear accountability. When costs rise, it is difficult to identify who is responsible or where to seek relief. The psychological impact of this uncertainty cannot be overstated. Seniors value predictability. They budget carefully. They plan months and years ahead. Sales tax increases tied to shifting federal policy undermine that predictability. Retirees begin to feel like they are constantly reacting rather than planning. This stress affects mental health, relationships, and overall well-being. Seniors also worry about the long-term trend. Once Medicaid cuts lead to sales tax increases, it sets a precedent. Future cuts may be handled the same way. Each cycle makes local taxes higher. Over decades, the cumulative effect is staggering. Retirees who thought they were prepared find themselves falling behind. The issue is not whether healthcare should be funded. Seniors understand the importance of medical access. The issue is how the burden is distributed. When sales taxes become the default solution, those least able to absorb the cost pay the most. Retirees do not have the flexibility policymakers assume. As these changes unfold, seniors should pay attention to local proposals and understand how federal decisions ripple downward. Awareness does not eliminate the burden, but it helps retirees anticipate changes and advocate for protections. Transparency matters. Without it, sales tax increases quietly reshape retirement without consent. Local sales tax increases after federal Medicaid cuts are not temporary inconveniences. They are structural changes that redefine affordability for older Americans. For seniors, the question is not whether they support healthcare funding. It is whether the system recognizes their vulnerability and protects their ability to live with dignity. As this pattern continues, seniors will feel the pressure more each year. Grocery trips will cost more. Household basics will strain budgets. Medical support will become harder to afford. The link between federal cuts and local taxes may remain hidden in policy discussions, but retirees live the reality every day. Understanding this connection is the first step toward protecting retirement stability. Seniors deserve policies that acknowledge fixed incomes and rising costs, not solutions that quietly shift burdens onto those least able to bear them. The stakes are not political. They are personal, immediate, and deeply human.